Direct assessments, simply asking people what their attitudes are. So, maybe a direct assessment might be I give you guys a survey, and the survey just says, it's actually called a scale, an attitude scale. Maybe I give you an attitude scale, and I say, on a scale from -4 to +4, what is your opinion about allowing immigrants into the country? What do you think about it? What is your gut feeling about it? How likely would you be to invite an immigrant into your home? Okay, I'm just asking you, what is your position? What is your attitude about something? One particular example, if you look on slide number 7, one particular example of a direct assessment, a direct attitude assessment, is what we call a semantic differential scale. Okay, semantic differential scale. And the reason I want to focus on this one is because it'll be important later on in another lecture when we talk about how people's attitudes change. Remember, I said attitude is just a tendency. Attitudes can change. So let's look at slide number 7, the semantic differential scale. And if you'll notice, so here's an example of one that says, circle all attitude positions that you might be willing to accept. Leave uncircled any positions that you would reject. Okay, so instead of asking respondents to just circle one number that represents their attitude, it's asking them circle all the numbers that might at some point represent your attitude. It's kind of saying we understand that on different days you might feel differently. So circle like the range of how you feel about this particular thing. So this one is my attitude toward Mexican people. So if you see a respondent might indicate a latitude of acceptance. That's 3 scale positions, okay, by circling numbers 1, 2, and 3. We call that latitude of acceptance. It's basically the range of numbers that they say their attitude falls on, okay? So the latitude of rejection is the scale position, the scale positions that are circled. We call it latitude of rejection, is the scale positions that are not circled. So if you look on here, 2 respondents, 2 different people might have circled +2. Both of them might say, two different people might say, okay, how do I feel towards Mexicans? I feel kind of a little bit positive, maybe not all the way positive, but not negative. So, I'll circle number +2. One respondent, however, might only circle +2 and say, this is how I feel, it's never going to change, I know I feel +2 about it. Somebody else, on the other hand, might circle, let's say they circle everything except -4. So they're saying, some days I feel +2. Some days I know I feel negative. I'm all the way to -3, okay? So in this case, we would say that the person who circled the most numbers has more flexibility in their attitude. Their attitude is more flexible. That person's attitude is probably more likely to change from day to day. As opposed to the person who just circled +2, we say their attitude is more rigid. We know that their attitude is probably not good. They're probably not going to change their mind very much about how they feel and how they believe about something. Okay? Indirect assessments of attitudes are like kind of ways of going around. You don't want to right out ask somebody how they feel, because what did we learn in one of the other lectures? People don't always know how they feel, or they're not quite very aware of their true feelings. Either that, or they don't want to tell you the truth about their true feelings. Some of you might ask somebody, what's your attitude toward Mexican people? And of course, it's pretty unpopular to be racist these days. So somebody who's trying to, make you like them might say, well, I really like Mexicans, because they know that that's what they're supposed to say. And that might not be the true answer. So indirect assessments are ways of kind of getting around that and getting people's true attitudes about things. One way that researchers do that is called the bogus pipeline technique. And what that means, it consists of convincing the respondent that the experimenter has a pipeline into the respondent's real attitudes. Okay, so one way somebody might do this is they might say, okay, I'm hooking you up to this machine, and this machine is going to tell me whether or not you're lying, almost like a lie detector test. And if the person that you're hooking up to the lie detector test doesn't know any better, they might say, oh my gosh, I better tell the truth, because if I lie, this researcher is going to know. So let me just go ahead and tell the truth. In reality, what do we know about lie detector tests? They're not very good. Okay? So in reality, the researcher really can't tell if the person is lying, but the participant thinks the researcher can tell if he's lying or not. So that way they're more likely to tell the truth about their real attitudes. Another way you might do this, if you had the technology and the money to buy the machine, is called using electromographic recordings. Okay, and this is similar to when we talked about micro expressions earlier, and the fact that that people give away their true feelings, on their face through micro expressions, through tiny muscle movements that we can't even see. But a machine, like an electromographic machine, can pick it up. So a researcher might put these things on somebody's face, ask them their attitude about something, or even like show them a picture of something. So they might, put the things in their face, hook them up to the machine, show them a picture of an immigrant, and see what their face, does. Try to capture those micro expressions to see what their real feeling about it is. Okay, so that would be an indirect way of assessing an attitude. All right, so let's move on and talk about how attitudes are developed. How do people even form their attitudes? Because when we're born, we don't know anything about the world. So how do we eventually come to have all these different attitudes and all these different beliefs about different things? Attitudes are usually formed. We usually develop our attitudes because we have learned some information from somewhere, okay? Whether it be someone told us, whether we saw it on TV, whatever. More times than not, attitudes are formed because we have gotten some information and then we've evaluated it and formed an attitude, formed an opinion and an attitude about it. Okay? And talk about getting, not only does the information that we get have to be obviously information, but it has to be persuasive. It has to persuade us that, what that person said is true. So think about the media, okay? Think about when people see images of black people in the media, okay? Let's say that you never met a black person before, that you came to America, we sat you down in front of BET, put on some music videos, some rap videos, and said, here you go, okay? And that's all you ever saw about black people. Well, then you would probably think, oh my gosh, I'm convinced, I'm seeing all these pictures, I'm seeing all these videos, this must be what black people are about. And then let's say that you saw a movie, and in the movie the black people were robbing banks and killing people and shooting people, and you would say, okay, black people must be bad. I'm seeing it. I'm getting information. The information is persuading me to believe that all black people are like this and they're bad. And boom, now you have an attitude about black people. You have evaluated them and come to an opinion about it. All right. Another way that we develop our attitudes is through classical conditioning, okay? If you're not familiar with classical conditioning, you should have learned about it in your Intro to Psych class. If you haven't learned about it, if you don't know about it, look it up, okay? I'm not going to go into detail about it because I'm going to assume that you already know what classical conditioning is basically all about. But sometimes we get our opinions, we form our attitudes about certain things because of classical conditioning, okay? So we might have come to like or dislike something because we're so used to it being paired with something pleasurable or unpleasurable, okay? So let's say, for example, I'm going to use the black people experiment example again. Let's say that you move from a country where there are no black people and you move to one where there is black people. Okay, and let's say every single time that you have ever come across a black person on the street, they have they punched you. They punched you in the face. That would happen. That's just an extreme funny example, but let's just say that happened. Every time you saw a black person for the first week that you were in America, every time you saw a black person, they punched you. No reason, just walked up to you, punched you, walked away. Okay? Then let's say your second week in America, you come across some black people and they don't punch you, but you're so used to like thinking black person, punch in the face, black person, punch in the face, that now whenever you see a black person you think, oh my God, you're reminded of that punch in the face, and you automatically think negatively about them. You formed a negative attitude about black people because in your experience black people have been paired with something negative, okay? That can go for anything. If you come across something and it's always paired with something that you enjoy, then you're probably gonna have a positive attitude about that thing, because in your mind you think that one thing that represents something positive always happening to me, so you have a positive attitude. That's classical conditioning of attitudes. Okay.